Hello and welcome to another weekly analysis behind the news. Last week, we went somewhat in-depth into globalism and how JBS has helped shape the opposition to it. This week, we traveled on a similar path to tackle relations with China and trade. Last week, the BBC interviewed Chinese Finance Minister Xia Yaowen to get his reaction to some of Trump's comments on China. They report that he said, "I want to say that the U.S. is the world's largest economy, and China is the second largest economy. There are immense economic exchanges and cooperation between the two countries," he told me. And these kinds of economic cooperation and exchanges have yielded tangible benefits to the countries and the people of both China and the United States. I think that these benefits should be recognized by the President-elect and the peoples of the two countries. President-elect Trump, Mr. Xi went, might change his tune now he was about to enter the White House. Those of you following Trump's appointment picks will notice that last week he chose Peter Navarro to lead the White House National Trade Council, of which Trump created to advise him on trade negotiations. Mr. Navarro is the author of the excellent documentary Death by China, which we sell at shopjbs.org. In the documentary, he points out that China began flooding U.S. markets with illegally subsidized products in 2001, and since then, more than 50,000 American factories have disappeared, while more than 25 million Americans can't find a decent job, and that America now owes more than $3 trillion to China, the world's largest totalitarian nation. He then puts in a pitch that the best jobs program for America is trade reform with China. In the Wall Street Journal, Dean Baker, co-founder of the Center for Economic and Policy Research, a liberal think tank, said that Navarro doesn't represent mainstream viewpoints on a number of issues, calling him and Carl Icahn, another Trump advisor, outliers. He said, "In the senses that we think of a business establishment, neither of them are in it." The article continues. Several liberal economists said although they opposed many of Mr. Navarro's policy ideas, he deserves credit for challenging both Democrats and Republicans to think differently about the costs of globalization. He contributed to the elevation of this issue of the downsides of globalization, which elite politicians have ignored at great cost for decades, and I give him credit for that, said Jared Bernstein, a former Obama administration economist. On trade, Mr. Trump has promised to withdraw the U.S.'s pledge to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade with Japan and other Pacific Rim nations that Congress has yet to ratify. And he has called for the U.S. to renegotiate the North American Free Trade Agreement with Canada and Mexico. Since he made trade a large issue in his campaign, we expect to see him make some progress on removing the globalist agenda tied to trade agreements. However, the article ends by stating that a likely Trump appointee to be Chief Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow posted on Twitter before the November election that Navarro is just wrong regarding economic principles. We'll have to see how Trump reconciles the 2 points of view within economic and trade issues when his administration officially begins. However, we will need to stay vigilant and ensure that the globalist agenda is indeed pulled from any trade negotiations. Be sure to regularly visit our Stop the Free Trade Agenda Action Project at jbs.org for up-to-date information and tools. Newt Gingrich is back in the news. He was interviewed by NPR and suggested that Trump's promise to drain the swamp was merely campaign rhetoric instead of official policy. Yet, shortly thereafter, Trump tweets out, "Someone incorrectly stated that the phrase drain the swamp was no longer being used by me. Actually, we will always be trying to drain the swamp." NPR writes what happens next. About 20 minutes later, Gingrich walked his statement back with a tweet and video statement. "I want to report that I made a big boo-boo," Gingrich said in the video. "I talked this morning with President-elect Donald Trump, and he reminded me he likes draining the swamp. Draining the swamp is in," he added, addressing his viewers directly, "and you're going to be a part of it." Perhaps Gingrich's reluctance to accept the reportedly impending swamp draining stems from the fact that having served in Congress for 20 years, he's pretty much the textbook definition of those alligators that Trump is hoping to oust. And that is exactly how we hope Trump sees him. Gingrich may talk a good game, but his actions fall far short of his rhetoric. If you haven't seen our video, The Real New Gingrich, you need to. After viewing it, you'll understand why Gingrich needs to be as far away from D.C. as possible. He's more of a globalist who has conservative tendencies. One of our biggest challenges this year will be to help identify those wolves in sheep clothing who are working to co-opt Trump's agenda of Americanism with globalism. Now is a great time to learn how to do so and what you can do to ensure we take every opportunity to get the federal government to once again obey the Constitution. There has never been a better time to get involved. Join or donate to the John Birch Society today. Visit jbs.org for more information, and be sure to like and share this video with your family and friends. Sign up for our e-newsletter and subscribe to our social media channels. Until next week, we'll see you then.